We need water to survive, but water can also kill us. Too much of anything is a problem. It's freaking sit with yourself. No background music, don't have another person. Get that phone as far away from you as possible and truly sit with yourself in silence and start asking yourself questions. You've mastered so many skills already. You've established really good, strong habits to get you to the level of success that you're at. But then what happens is that you kind of go on autopilot.
Welcome back to another episode of the 5-Minute Career Hack Podcast. I can't believe, y'all, we are in season 4 of the podcast. We have been doing this for 4 years. It has been an incredible blessing to the co-founders here at 5-Minute Career Hack, and we hope it's been the same for you. And before I hop in, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for showing up for us. Thank you for listening to this episode. All the friends that you shared it with, we greatly appreciate you. Today, I have the phenomenal Jayme Sharla on the line with me today. She is an executive wellness coach and an NLP practitioner. Jayme's bringing hot fire today, y'all, and let's welcome her to the show. Jayme, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, what's going on, guys? I am so stoked to be here. Let's go.
Why do you think that high achievers often struggle to set transformative intentions, and how can they fix this with their goal-setting routines in 2025?
Great question. Yeah, I like to be a disruptor, just because, like, for me, I like you're gonna hear real quick. I love quotes, but one of my favorite quotes is, just because something is normal doesn't mean it's good. So I love that it's like that you're already disrupting that in itself. Of It's a suggestion. That doesn't mean that this is actually genuine fruit that is going to serve you. So to kind of go against the grain here, what I think that happens, and I want to speak kind of in two different areas here. I'm going to start obviously with the high achievers. You've mastered so many skills already. You've established really good, strong habits to get you to the level of success that you're at. But then what happens is that you kind of go on autopilot. And it's almost like you've reached this point that, yes, you may be challenging yourself, but you have so many tasks, you have so many things that you're doing, that now everything is like, how can I be more efficient? How can I get more done? How can I add more to my plate? How can I do more? How can I be more? How can I do all of this? And especially living in a world with the beautiful technology of AI, it's everything is streamlined. Everything is efficient. Let me find an app that can do all of this for me. Yes, that is necessary. But what that has taken away from us is truly the chance to sit with ourselves and why we're doing something, and really reflect on, like, is this really working for me? Is this serving me now and also long term? But it's actually pausing to do that, I think, that is a problem. I actually had somebody recently that she took one of my courses, and she responded in an email, the call to action that was given from the course, and it was so obvious that it was typed into AI. And I'm like, you didn't even think this through for yourself, because you typed out a couple of thoughts, but then you let ChatGPT decide for you how to make that sound really good and to resonate for you. That's a problem. And so then I also want to kind of like talk to another audience here, those who are striving to be high achievers. You are now wanting to mimic and you want to chase all of those people because that's what you do to get successful. But if what they're doing isn't working, you're kind of already following potentially pieces to a system that will also kind of set you to this point to reach burnout, to maybe not reach the level of success that you're seeking. So I would very much say that it's like, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think the world is demanding so much of us all the time, always asking for more, always more money, being the best parent, being the healthiest version of yourself, being faster, having the strongest relationships. Like, our perspective is so much in forward thinking that we're missing truly where we are right now. So I think it's just that the problem with the goal setting right now, it's like we're just checking things off of a list because it's what we do. It's the new habit.
Yeah. And it's missing the human element that's required for us to actually be in purpose and calling. I love the way you shape that. And you even talked about like the aspiring high achiever. we are looking at the behaviors of those who have been in those positions. And if we don't tighten up our behavior and disrupt that behavior, we're gonna we're basically doing a disservice to those who look to us as role models. So I wrote down, when you said that, intentionality is role model behavior. I've said authenticity is, but I think being intentional, it's a responsibility of those who have so many people looking at us as they start to think about who and what they want to be. They're looking to us, so we've got to do it the right way. I love that you shared that. And you're going to talk about some of the strategies as well of, how you set goals that are rooted in intention. So I know you're going to talk about that, but I think another thing is, once, like, people can hear, like, hey, here's the problem or here's the myth, and then we resort to, well, let me just be positive. Let me just say I ain't stressing today, and then I'm not going to stress, or let me put a positive spin on that. And you watch all these videos on social media and all the trends, to your point, that are telling us, like, hey, this is the solution to it. I'm an affirmation person. I think that's you. I've heard you say several times that you're not an affirmation person. So I love that. I love when you say it. I'm like, yes, I love the opposition. But I know what you mean by, not that you don't believe in affirmations, but it's not the solution. And sometimes without getting to the root of it, we slap a little bit of positivity on it, and we think the problem is going to go away. And we're not setting the goals, and we're not achieving the things because we slap that positivity on it. And so I know you talk about it as toxic positivity, right?
Yes.
So tell me how does that toxic positivity, even if it's the use of affirmations, the misuse of affirmations, I'll say that, how does toxic positivity sabotage meaningful progress in goal setting?
Yes, girl, I could go on and on and on and on and on about toxic positivity. I like to speak in stories and I like to share quotes. So probably both are going to happen while I talk about this.
Let's go.
One of my favorite quotes, not one of, it is literally like, if this isn't on my tombstone when I die, I'm going to be highly disappointed. We need water to survive, but water can also kill us. Too much of anything is a problem. And so that's kind of where this concept of toxic positivity, like, yes, you should focus on gratitude. Yes, you should choose to see the silver lining in everything. But if you now create this cognitive bias of only seeing things from a positive perspective, you're also going to set yourself up for failure because you're not being realistic. So for instance, if it's like, you know what, hey, everything's fine, I'm fine, life is good, and things really aren't going that great, but they're going to get better. Hey, no, because maybe the reality is that things truly would be fine if you stop avoiding this problem, and that you're dismissing because it's negative. Like, I know a lot of times within like the fitness and nutrition space, which that's a whole conversation for another day, but like the difference between good and bad foods. Food is food. Some just have more nourishment than others. And I feel the same way about emotions. Emotions are there for a reason. They're telling you something. Emotions are not facts, but they are something that are helping create awareness to what you're experiencing. And so I think that it's important to be able to acknowledge, like, hey, am I being too hard on myself right now? Or is the fact of the matter is that I've been giving myself grace and saying that like it's going to get better, but I'm using that to stay in bed and not actually go do the thing that I need to do to just rip the Band-Aid off that's finally going to actually get me to where I want to be. Like, it's we fall into, and that's the reason why I don't like the affirmation aspect, is because it's like that is that fake it till you make it mentality. And I went through a season of my life that I needed that, because I had to pull myself out of the freaking valley because I was living in such negativity. So I had to just kind of train my brain to start bringing more awareness to positivity.
Mm-hmm.
But again, too much of anything is a problem. And now this leads me to my story. Is I had a dear friend of mine who he also is a coach. And I actually invested in him to coach me through like my fitness and nutrition stuff. And I reached a point that I actually started to like not trust him, because the dude was so freaking positive all the time. where I'm like, you're hiding something, because it is impossible to be this good all the time. And then it's like, what are you really like or not like addressing? And again, it's like, I don't feel like I can even relate to you, because there's this wall of almost fakeness at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, that was actually, and I've never shared this, so I feel like, because I promised this guy is an amazing freaking human. And I don't even know if he would ever know if I was talking about him if he watches this, but it's all with good intention. I like to call those my Sour Patch Kids moments. First I'm sour, then I'm sweet. Is it's such a beautiful thing to be kind and to be joyful and everything. But I think in scripture, Ecclesiastes, for everything there is a time. And so sometimes you have to sit down and be real. You have to grieve sometimes, but then you got to get up out of that pity party and move forward too.
Yes. Brendon Bouchard says a pity party is just like any other party. It lasts one night. It's over, and it's over by the end of the night. So, you know, and also Dawn Staley talked. I heard her talk about it as well, because she's a basketball coach, and so one of her rules for her team was they got 24 hours. We lost the game. I want you to feel that, because you need to feel that, but we got 24 hours, and we gotta get back. Gotta get back to game time, right? Jayme, you shared so much. I don't know if you saw me like running track on my notes over here. But you know, you just share so many amazing gems, and I want to underscore a couple things you said, because one, seasons change, right? And so I love that you talked about that season where you had to take like action on like infusing a lot of positivity with affirmations. But it shouldn't become the only thing you're focused on. Once you get past that season of you need more of this, because I can be excessive that way as well. Like Jamila's called me excessive before. She was like, you over index. Like once you find a thing, you over index in it. And now I actually, like, I don't, not that I don't agree, but I realize like as seasons change, I'm moving to the next thing that I just want to add as a part of my routine. So at one point, I was having to listen to affirmations almost every day, because my self-talk after I left corporate America, my self-talk, my self-worth, the way that I felt about myself, it was negative. So I needed it to be in my ear. I needed it playing on my TV. And now it's just a part of my routine. It's not what I'm only focused on, but it helped me get to the next season. So I love the way you frame that up. If you do too much of anything, it becomes negative, but also realizing that like it's not the end all be all. This is not the solution. And you actually have to do the thing that's going to get you to these goals that you are setting, the ones that are rooted in intention, not just the regular tasky goals that Jayme talked about earlier. And then I do think, you know, this is a caution. I think you put out a very good caution for people who are in the career space, for those who are motivators, leaders, encouragers, that put a narrative that we don't have issues, pain, like putting out that narrative is very, very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. I did it for most of my career. Of everything was just great. And when I hit that wall in 2020, I hit my head hard, right? But right before that, I had just started to tell the truth about how I was feeling. I took 2 weeks off of work. I went on a 2-week LOA. Like I did all these things because I was like, this is not right. But I felt responsible for keeping everybody else positive. And it just seemed crazy to me that joy, because I was happy to a degree, but it seemed crazy that joy and pain could exist at the same time. And just as Jayme just talked about, there's a time for it. Joy and pain actually can exist at the same time. We can end this war with our emotions, as Dr. Anita Phillips said, and we just have to own how we feel and then use that as information to move to the next thing. It's how you feel it, and then now you have information about how this certain thing makes you feel, and now as you go to the next step, you know what your triggers are, you know what's going to make you happy, you know where you want to be, where you don't want to be. But just skipping over the emotion and jumping to positivity, that's a dangerous place to be. So I love that you shared that. It wasn't the angle or that I thought you were going to go, but I was like, "Ooh, this is good. This is really good," because you don't want to get caught up in sweeping it under the rug, especially as it pertains to your professional life, because that influences your legacy, that influences your relationships, that influences your purpose. So when you're in your professional life, skipping over the things that are hurtful, you're basically lying to yourself. And when you come out from under that lie, the only person you're going to be upset with is yourself.
Mhm.
I know this from experience. Before we hop into these strategies, anything else you want to add to that? I was just kind of re-preaching what hit my heart, but anything
Yeah.
else you want to add to that?
Two things.
Okay.
One, because first of all, girl, that's a sermon in itself about joy and pain uh, coexisting. But one thing that I would almost even to take a step further from what you said is that it's not that joy and pain can coexist; it's that they do coexist. It's whether you choose to acknowledge it or not, because good and bad are always happening at the same time. It can be thunderstorming and raining in freaking Oklahoma and it's sunny here. Like that's just how it works. It's always happening at the same time. And so when you learn how to just kind of balance out the pendulum of those extremes, to me, I think that is like the ultimate mastery to life, is using the different tools you have when you're weighing more towards the storm or the sun. So that's one thing. The other thing that I think is super powerful that you mentioned, and I think it goes back to intention, is one of the pastors at the church I go to, in his book, he had a mentor who would always tell him, or maybe it was even his therapist, but he was like, the person would say, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. And they're like, if you have to keep telling me that you don't care, something tells me that you actually do. So if you have to keep trying to tell yourself you're fine, you're probably not fine. And to me, and this was even a lot that catapulted with my business back in 2020, was that was the real mask that people were hiding behind, is that I have been putting this facade onto the world and denying what was happening here, where I'm running from those emotions. And so some people then took it so far as to just sit and sulk in those emotions. And other people literally lost their freaking minds because they didn't know how to sit with that. And I will always say this, that like that is the ultimate strategy I could give you, is like every podcast I've ever been on, usually the question that gets asked. So thank you for not asking this, but I guess I get to give the answer anyway. There was like, what is one thing that you can leave somebody with that they can do now today? It's freaking sit with yourself. No background music. Don't have another person. Get that phone as far away from you as possible, and truly sit with yourself in silence and start asking yourself questions. Period. Because nobody actually even knows how to sit in silence anymore, and that's why there is a constant anxiety that's happening. So I'll leave on that note, because I know we still got
Yes.
strategies to get to.
Yes. And one of my favorite lines that I say actually in a series of videos I did in 2023 and 4 was one of the most important conversations that you're going to have is the one that you have with yourself. That is where the truth should come out so you can actually show up in the world, in your career, in your business, authentic, because you have had truth telling sessions with yourself. Question and answers. My grandmother used to always say, if you talk to yourself, something's wrong with you. I love my grandma, but I don't agree, grandma. She's not with us anymore, but she knows that I no longer agree because I talk to myself all day long and tell myself the truth and debunk lies. So
Yeah.
listen, you may be thinking, though, for those of you who are watching, what does this have to do with goal setting? Well, listen,
Everything.
that was exact. This is why you and I are so aligned. I was going to say everything because the problem with the way that we're setting goals is they have misplaced intention, and our minds and our hearts are sometimes in the wrong place when we're setting goals. That's one of the problems. And so Jayme's here to share some strategies. She's going to share with us some strategies on properly setting intentions to make sure that this upcoming year, we're in 2025 right now. Even though I don't know exactly when this is going to air. However, it's never too late to start over with your goals. It doesn't have to be January, February, March, or April. Like it can be your new year. I did a Happy New Year post at Riley O Designs back in October. Happy New Year. Whatever you want to start over with today, start over with it, but it's going to require a mindset shift. So talk to us a little bit about those strategies and properly setting intentions, so that whenever that starting point of someone's year is, they can actually do it, and feel fulfilled and on purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've done a couple presentations on this so far this year because I actually, very similar to what you just said, when people go left, I'm always going right. That's why I personally can't even stand New Year's at all. Like, yes, I love just kind of the clean slate reset, but like to me, like if my house is on fire today, I'm not going to wait till Monday. I'm not going to wait till next year to call 911 to be able to have the fire department come out. I'm literally going to do something about it now. So if you're wanting to change something in your life, like stop using a justification of a new year, a new month, a new day to do it. Like start right freaking now. Okay. So there's that part. But the strategies that I kind of want to share, I may even, it's going to almost sound so simple that you're going to be like, really? This is the big prominent 4 strategies you're giving? Yes. Because I think that we also live in a world that we are fed so much information, but the problem isn't an information problem. The problem is an action problem. Yes, we
Put that in the
are
chat. It's not an
yes,
information problem. It's an action problem. We have the
yes.
information, but we're not taking action. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet and let you.
Yes, yes. And so I think it's important to kick it back to the basics. And I've actually done this presentation a couple times already so far this year. And in every time I always like to read the room. And I've worked with entrepreneurs, people who are in corporate, all across the board. And I'm like, okay, have you done your goals for 2025 yet? Some people are like, yeah, absolutely. Okay. And other people are like, it's a work in progress. Okay. Other people are like, we'll get there. Okay. So even with it being all across the board, wherever you fall in this as you're listening, don't tune out because all 4 of these strategies still apply to you. Again, even those of you who have already set your goals into action. So the first strategy is deep reflection. I actually, with all of my clients, especially that are working with me throughout the months of December and January, they already know it's coming. I take them through a deep reflection from everything that happened throughout the last year. And so pin that for real quick, the reason why, even though it sounds really simple and you're going to tell me that you probably did it, I'm going to challenge you that there's still more there that you're missing. I even take my clients all the way through this and they're like, oh, well, these were some of the big things. Like we wanted a family vacation. Oh, this really was a bad year because this, and this happened. Okay. And that's how they're settling for the reflection of 365 days worth of meat that you could be devouring right now. So asking yourself, okay, this is something that happened, whether good or bad. What did that teach me? What habit formed because of that? What did I stop doing because of that hard lesson that was learned? Like ask yourself better questions, but genuinely reflect on how much you've grown and what you've grown through in the last year. So strategy 1, deeper reflection. Strategy 2, know where you are. The example I give here is I'm originally from Ohio and I live here in Texas. If I were to type into my GPS that I want to go to Ohio, but I don't tell the GPS where I am right now, I can guarantee you the GPS is not going to be able to get me properly to Ohio because it has no idea where my starting point is. And I think, again, when we are on autopilot with setting our goals, we just vaguely are like, okay, roughly this is kind of what happened and this is what I'm aiming for, but we don't actually like know where we are. What habits do I have right now that are serving me? Which ones aren't? Even it's truly, where am I currently sitting within the goals that I've achieved or I haven't achieved yet? And does that bother me? Do I still want to work on this? Do I not? So I think knowing truly where you are is an important strategy. Like recognize the location here and now today.
Love it, love it. Can I ask you a
Yes.
question before you go to the
Yes.
next one? Because
Yes. I was going to say, you
I'm
look
sure
like you want to say something.
I know because I'm writing them. So I think deep reflection before setting goals. Obviously, if you're doing that and reflecting on a 365 days, that's going to require time, right? And the person who's probably listening to this going, Well, where's the time to do that? Like life is still moving. Like, like answer that question for me. How do you change the mind of that person who just won't choose to take time to do this, and give them a little insight on what a process can look like? Because for me, I'm reflecting every day.
Yes.
I'm probably an over reflector. So when I get to the end of the year, it's not that hard for me because I kind of already know. But the person who's not familiar with this, how can we help them to kind of get on board a little quicker?
Okay, so I already mentioned to you guys I'm a Sour Patch Kid, so you're about to get full blown sour, but I'm actually gonna try to sweeten you up first, by starting out delicate. So you said something pretty profound there about like you do it on a regular basis. I agree. I have weekly self audits, I have daily self audits, and I have monthly self audits. So by the time I get to the end of the year, I'm already pretty well on track with it. So think of the same thing how you manage your finances. Are you doing that with your personal mental bank? The same way you would that. And if you're tracking what's coming in and what's going out on a weekly basis of your bank account, like it's important for you to do that with your mental bank account too. So now where I'm going to jump in just so deep into tough love, and like you can get upset with me on it, but that's a sign that it's ruffling your feathers and you really need to sit with it. Tough love. Another of my favorite quotes: busyness or being busy is the worst excuse you could ever give me. Such trash. What you are telling me when you're busy is that it's not a priority. So own it. If you tell me where will I find the time, I'm too busy, it's not a priority. That's fine. If you think that you're too busy to genuinely sit down to plan out the trajectory of your life, this only life we have to live, that's on you, boo. Like, that's not a priority. So, I'm sorry that I'm not going to give you a golden nugget. I'm just going to leave you with that
Hey,
and let
the
you
hackers are
marinate potentially in that.
the hackers are used to that. I actually can be found inside of our community saying that exact thing. I don't want to hear. I did a whole series on it because I would talk to friends or family clients, and it was I don't have time, and it's just like, well, how? And I was thinking like, well, why do I have time? Because we all have the same 24 hours in a day. It's just about our choice. We're not choosing to do it. We're not. It's not a priority. So
Yeah.
change it from I don't have time to it's not my priority, and you're gonna feel a little bit of
How
conviction
that feels.
if it's something that you really need to be doing, and you have to say to it it's not a priority. It's gonna convict you. So love it. I think that's great advice, great practical advice, and they can find even more inside the career hacker community. So we got deep reflection, own and know where you are, and wrap us up with the last couple of strategies.
Yeah, so 3 actually segues into this perfectly. It's the power of subtraction. So even in that same even in that same conviction, right, of shifting that phrase of I'm busy to it's not a priority, that also can be a good thing. Because guess what? If you're feeling overwhelmed and you're busy, maybe you and I had talked about this offline. Maybe there are networking events that you're going to that aren't necessary for you to be at. Maybe pick a couple of key ones that you could, so you could subtract the amount of time and energy that you're pouring into specific areas of your life. And that way you now have more room to put more effective strategies or tasks or events on your calendar. Like, especially if you know where you are right now, that like, hey, I've been really, really grinding, and like I really, really know that I need to keep doing that. But right now my family has been suffering a lot. I haven't made time with my kids. So maybe it's like, you know what? The power of subtraction. I'm going to choose to eliminate one networking event a week so I can now dedicate that time to truly be present with my kids. Or if there is a habit, I think, and I will also full transparency here, I felt I had a good grasp on my awareness on this specific habit, but due to it being subtracted for me, I didn't realize how much attention it was actually taking from me. TikTok.
Interesting.
I used TikTok a lot for business purposes, right? Like I am a strong woman of Christ, and there are so many amazing videos, and I have learned about so many amazing podcasts and learned so much about scripture by watching TikTok. But now, because I have a timer on my phone that like will track all of my social media apps, so that way I know that I'm not spending more than X amount of hours a day. actually being on my phone on social media. And so I assumed that primarily I'm commenting and posting on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, but I also posted on TikTok. But TikTok was a time filler for me. It was a distraction. It was kind of my go-to, even if for a boost of a quick dopamine. Again, full transparency with you. And so when this app went down, I'm like, well, this is my chance to delete it. Part of me had FOMO when I heard that if you actually kept the app, it's back up and running now. But now, if you don't have the app, you can't download it. And I now realize how much extra capacity, mental capacity I have, and also time, because I'm not sitting on that app. So the power of subtraction. What are maybe some habits? What are some maybe thoughts and things that you've been telling yourself? What are some maybe time fillers that you can remove from your calendar that can make space for more? So the power of subtraction would be the third. Anything on that?
A lot. We're wrapping up soon. A lot though. Wow, that was amazing. I think what the for those of you who are listening, because I think the question I would say is, what is your TikTok? What's your
Yes.
TikTok? That was such a great that was a great example. And there's several things. I know you and I have been embarking on a Daniel fast over the last less than 21 days. I've actually decided that I'm going to go 40 days, but so much capacity has opened up. I'm far more focused. Goals seem more clear because there's a few things that I have just removed. I've subtracted things, but I think our natural inclination as humans, and we learn this, is when we're looking to make a big change, we start doing addition math. But what can I add to my calendar? Who do I need to add to my network? And where do I need to go into doing all these extra things? And addition is actually what leads to that overwhelm, that pressure, and one of your least favorite words, burnout. It leads to that when you're consistently adding things to your plate. So I'm about that subtraction life. I actually learned that principle a couple years ago from Darren Hardy. I don't know if you've heard of Darren Hardy from the
Yeah.
Compound
Oh,
Effect.
girl. That his book, The Compound Effect, is
Oh my
literally
God.
what catapulted my obsession with personal development.
Oh,
Great fan here.
absolutely. It's one. So I did a book club on that inside of the 5 Minute Career Hack community. And anytime someone goes like, "Hey, what's the go-to books?" That's always going to be in the top five of the books, because it covers just so many things about, your actions, your behaviors, and your habits. So, yes, but no, I'm about that life, about the subtraction life, and I just want to discourage people from constantly adding to their plate. But then I think the last disruptive thing before you talk about the fourth strategy is going to be, we say we don't have time. We're afraid to subtract because we're afraid to break commitments and break promises of things that we said we're already going to do. And I kind of am here to say, like, sometimes you got to break commitments. Sometimes you got to go have a courageous conversation with someone because you need to take something off your plate and say, look, I committed to this, or I know that I'm supposed to do this, but I have to prioritize something else. I'm not saying go, tell your boss you can't do your job. I'm not going to say tell a business client you can't do something. But in order for you to make time for priorities, you've got to find out a way, this is my opinion, to be okay with sometimes I got to break a commitment or a promise. You can't go to every game. Figure out how you can split up your kids' games with your partner, because you may not be able to go to every game because you need to sit down and do some focused work, right? So that's the only other thing that I would add to it, before you go to the next strategy, and then we're going to wrap up with our final 5 words. I know you want to say what you got to say. Say it.
I'm like, okay, because I have one more thing. You literally just dropped a bomb right there. And so I need to drill in on this, since you were able to like cover the whole commitment thing so beautifully. When you said, what is your TikTok? Fun fact, it takes 21 days to make a habit, that was a freaking marketing ploy. That is not fact, because realistically, on average, it takes about 80 days, because many of these habits you're not even aware of. Like when you set a goal, right? And you're like, for 21 days, I'm going to do this. Like, yes, then you're aiming for perfection. And so the likelihood of solidifying that habit is huge. But like, For instance, especially for all of my hustlers out there, and especially all of them that are at a lot of happy hours and networking events, it's been a tough day. I just need a glass of wine. Well, then all of a sudden that glass of wine turns into two. And then all of a sudden it's a bottle. And now all of a sudden it's 4 days a week instead of just one. And then now you're wondering why you feel like trash. It ain't your job. I'm sorry, it's not. Don't say that your job is toxic. You're toxic because you're literally now consuming alcohol and you're sleeping like trash and you're waking up in a bad mood. Like, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's porn, maybe it's social media, maybe it is distracting yourself by attending and spending time with people that don't actually serve you and are not pouring into you. It's just because you feel cool fitting in with this group of people, right? Like, maybe it's constantly trying to flaunt that you have the life that you so desperately are actually wanting to live, but you feel the validation of others is going to be like, what is your TikTok? Like, sit with that. That's, oh man. Oh, that's a top. That's the title right there. Forget everything.
We're gonna have to do a part two. We got to do a part two.
Yes,
What is your TikTok?
actually, yeah. I wanna comment that real quick. If any of you guys want like us to come back with this conversation, because maybe I'm just biased, but I love this girl and I feel like we like just
it's a vibe.
It's comment for me to come back because I would love to be back. But so okay, fourth strategy. And the irony of this is because I used to freaking hate this. I got sucked into network marketing a couple times for a couple hot minutes. And they would always like, and it was so true. There was a lot of good intention behind it, but it was always on our sales calls. It was, if your why doesn't make you cry, it's not big enough. And then I like felt this pressure that I had to have this really awesome why, otherwise I wasn't going to be motivated to do it. And it just came from a weird space. So I used to hate just the question why altogether. So hypocrite, newly born, whatever you want to call it. My fourth strategy is the power of why. But what I mean by that, and we kind of talked about this way in the beginning, is the intention behind goal setting. And what I would want to have you ask yourself is those goals that you just set for 2025, or that are kind of lingering in your brain that you want to set. Why is that your goal? Like, what are you really going to feel when you accomplish that? Who is that goal really for? But like, why are you genuinely doing it? And the example I want to give here is I, in addition to a lot of the work that I do with like C-suite and, like individuals and like entrepreneurs and stuff, is that I've actually had another very interesting area of people who are burning out, but specifically those who are working even say like with nutrition and fitness coaches, where they're like, I'm coming to you because I'm 50 pounds overweight and my spouse won't even look at me the same. And so my why is that I'm going to lose all this weight so my husband will finally start loving me again. Well, then all of a sudden this person loses 50 pounds and their husband's treating exactly the same. And it's because this never changed. Right? And so it's like, why do you really want that goal? And the reason why this is important is because when you truly, like Tony Robbins talks about this, it's the 7 layers of why, where it's like, okay, so I want to achieve X amount of income in the year of 2025. Well, why? Because that would allow me to have financial freedom, and then I could finally be able to pay off this debt, and I could do that. Well, why? Because then that way I have all of this stress taken off of my plate that I don't have to worry about this debt that's been hanging over my head. Okay, well, why? Because that really seems to be important, because debt is constantly being thrown in my face that it's bad, and then I'm not actually rich until I remove all of my debt. Okay, well, why? Right? And then so it's like all of this could still lead to really good things, but when you deepen the reason why, like you're also going to solidify that intrinsic motivator of like, when stuff gets hard, this is why I'm going to persevere. When the motivation wears off, this is why I want to keep going. So it can either confirm that maybe this goal really isn't that big of a deal to you as what you think it is, or it's going to solidify why you're going to stick through the really hard days to make it happen. That's what I got.
Love it. In corporate America, we call that the root cause analysis. So that is a perfect example of getting to your why, is ask yourself those questions and dig deeper. And you don't have to be a certain age. I do that with my kids, of like, okay, let's solve the problem. So they get sick of it. Mama, we have to do this right now. Yes, because you are going to exist differently than I did in the world because you know how to do this early. So
Your
I
kid, just
love
for the
that.
record, too, your kids are gonna freaking run the world when they're adults. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've never even actually met them, but what I hear
Uh,
you say, man, you're gonna
yeah,
rule the world, and I
they
will
are
be
phenomenal.
glad. I hope I will be alive to live in that world because it's gonna be a better
Man,
place.
I'm incredibly blessed, and I appreciate you saying that. I'm incredibly blessed with them. I'm not here to give parenting advice, but we talked about being a role model earlier, and I always say they do what you do and not what you say. Uh,
100%.
I learned that a few years ago, just through some reflections, and so what we're doing here on the podcast, they probably are going to be podcasters because they see this and they enjoy it. They want to do their own podcast. So no, I appreciate that. So I'm gonna recap us before I give us the final 5 words. Jayme, you have been phenomenal. This has been a vibe. I have learned so much. You were all when you were saying talking about things, and I think you saw me go, "Oh my goodness," because we think just alike. So please comment that you want Jayme to come back, and she's coming back anyway because I truly enjoyed this conversation. I think there's more that we can dig deeper into. But one, deep reflection. Two, know where you are. Three, the power of subtraction. And four, the power of why. Do you a good old root cause analysis. Jayme, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your energy and your insights. And before we leave, as we always do, share your final 5 words with us.
So I actually picked like it's not like a little sentence because I thought about doing that too as like a word, but I am going to give 5 words. Backing up real quick, sorry. Nothing is ever short
Yeah,
with me, you'll learn that.
you're fine.
Um,
You're fine.
I always like to say this, take what you need and leave the rest. So there's a ton of like different nuggets that were dropped today. Whatever resonated with you, I challenge you to just take that with you. So, what I decided because of that, and already I kind of gave you 4 strategies plus that other golden nugget of just literally sit down with yourself. I'm going to leave you with 5 words. And if any of those 5 words resonate with you, I want to challenge you to just marinate on that word. Get curious about why maybe that word is hitting for you. So I chose 5 words for you to just feel out. Patience, tension, presence, discipline, and challenge.
Love it. I will tell you the one that resonated with me is discipline. That's actually one of my words for the year of 2025. I've got 2 words. So discipline set with me or it resonated with me. This morning, my devotional was discipline. And so I sent it to someone and she sent me back her devotional today, which was also discipline. And so I was like, okay, like I can't deny this. So
Third confirmation.
the third confirmation is now this is on your list of words, discipline, which is a principle. It's a concept that should be applied to your personal and your professional life. We like to say it's consistency, but it's the discipline to show up consistently. That's another podcast. But Jayme, thank you so much for joining us. It has been an incredible pleasure. I love you. I appreciate you. And I cannot wait to have you back on the 5 Minute Career Hack podcast.
Bye, guys.
Take care.